I would invite the citizens of all the countries involved to contact the authorities, political leaders, congressmen, to ask them, tell them to work for peace and to reject war always.
Why did you attack Pope Leo on Truth Social?
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. We don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo.
I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo, says President Donald Trump, who also alleged that Pope Leo wants Iran to have nukes, which just isn't true. Now, no one is immune from becoming Donald Trump's enemy, and that includes the Pope, clearly. Over the weekend, the president declared that Pope Leo is too liberal and weak on crime. But before we get to why Trump is seething over the head of the Catholic Church, Cenk, your 2 cents.
So look, if you thought Trump had any sense before, this story is going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he doesn't. I mean, forget pissing off tens of millions of Catholics in the country for no apparent reason. What he did with the blasphemous picture is unreal, unreal and inexplicable, other than he's an raging moron and narcissist.
Absolutely. Now, it is true that Pope Leo, by the way, the first US-born pope, has been incredibly critical of the Trump administration for a number of reasons. The handling of the genocide in Gaza is one example. The administration's decision to kidnap Nicolas Maduro and his wife from Venezuela. The militarized and brutal behavior of ICE agents in American cities. Now, the Pope has even turned down an invite to the White House, which I'm sure Trump did not like. But lately, Pope Leo has been vocal against the war in Iran, including Trump's threat to wipe out the entire Iranian civilization. Let me just note how ironic it is that we are allegedly at war with Iran because we must prevent an irrational actor from obtaining nukes. And as a result, a nuclear power like the United States is threatening to use nukes. I mean, it's amazing, it really is. But here's what Pope Leo had to say about the war. Today, as we all know, there was this threat against all the people of Iran. This is truly unacceptable. Leo recalled his Easter appeal for peace and to reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war, which is continuing to escalate and which is not resolving anything. And he also condemned Pete Hegseth. I mean, he's a target-rich environment. How could you not condemn Pete Hegseth? But nonetheless, he specifically went after Hegseth's use of Christianity in order to justify the US actions in this war in the Middle East, mass slaughter, things like that. He said in response, God doesn't bless any war and certainly not those who drop bombs. Leo made similar comments this past Sunday during an evening prayer service, saying that enough of the idolatry of self and money, enough of the display of power, enough of war. It is here that we find a bulwark against that delusion of omnipotence that surrounds us and is becoming increasingly unpredictable and aggressive. Even the holy name of God, the God of life, is being dragged into discourses of death. And that comment in particular seems to have triggered President Trump into his latest tantrum. So in another lengthy Truth Social post, the president wrote that Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. I don't want a pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Well, I have good news for the president. There's no indication that the Pope believes that Iran should have a nuclear weapon. Nonetheless, Trump's rant continued. I don't want a pope who thinks it's terrible that America attacked Venezuela. And I don't want a pope who criticizes the president of the United States because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide to do, setting record low numbers in crime and creating the greatest stock market in history. The stock market is built on a house of cards. Literally, all it takes is Trump to lie about how great things are going with Iran, and the markets respond favorably. It's insane. But aside from that, you ran a campaign that promised that you would not start any new wars. and then you literally started a war that even George W. Bush wasn't stupid enough to begin. So I don't know what to tell him. But obviously none of the things that Trump claims to have achieved or accomplished are true. And by the way, he also took credit for Pope Leo being chosen by the Vatican as a pope. Anyway, despite the backlash Trump received for that post, he did double down while talking to reporters. Take a look.
Why did you attack Pope Leo on Truth Social?
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
There is nothing more amusing than the notion of someone who isn't Catholic declaring which pope he wants or which pope he doesn't want. Your opinion on the pope doesn't matter at all.
Guys, when we started TYT, everyone assumed that the hard part would be figuring out their equipment, and that was a challenge for me, or this new thing called YouTube. Not easy, but we did it. But those were the relatively easy parts. The real challenge was playing every role at once. Host, producer, sales team, marketing. I was drowning in jobs I never even knew I signed up for. If you're building a business, you all know the drill. That never-ending to-do list can swallow you whole. What you really need is a partner. Someone who handles the heavy lifting so you can get back to why you started your business in the first place. For us, that partner is Shopify. Need a stunning online store that actually looks like your brand? Shopify gives you hundreds of beautiful pro-built templates. Pick one and make it yours. No coding degree required. God knows I don't have one. Need to get the word out? Shopify plugs you straight into email campaigns and social media tools that help you find customers wherever they hang out. And what about the messy back-end stuff? Tracking inventory, managing returns, shipping across borders. Shopify handles the logistics like the global commerce expert that they are. Everything you need, payments, analytics, day-to-day operations, lives in one place. No more juggling a dozen different services or apps. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. Go to shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT.
But the Pope did respond to Trump's comments and defended his position on the matter. Take a look.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe. I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not looking to make foreign policy, as he calls it, with the same perspective that he might understand it. But I do believe that the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers, is a message that the world needs to hear today.
Blessed are the peacemakers. Funny how that part of the religion tends to get left out by the warmongers that serve the US government. But Cenk, curious what you think about this tiff.
Okay, so I'm against the Pope because he's against war. All the popes are against war. Like that, does the schmuck not know that? That's like Jesus, to be fair, is called the prince of warmongering. Oh no, right, he's called the prince of peace, right? So he doesn't know a single thing about Christianity. He's an utter fool. So it's like the president is not the Pope. So sometimes you have to go to war. We understand that, right? But the Pope is always going to tell you not to go to war, especially in unjust wars like this. So you don't have to get angry about it. It isn't an affront to your ego, Donald Trump. And then the Pope's weak on crime. All right.
What does that even mean?
Well,
like he's not a policymaker. What are you talking about?
So here's a couple of things about why in Donald Trump's crazy head, Pope might be weak on crime. One, the popes are always against the death penalty. So to weak on crime. No, but they're pro-life. It's been doctrine our entire lives. But again, he just might not know anything, right? Trump. And then the Pope Leo wants us to take care of immigrants and not be mean and unkind.
Inhumane.
Yeah, and so he thinks it's a weak on crime. Well, let me quote someone else that weighed in on this. They said, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you are foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Let me guess. God's weak on crime, okay? And God doesn't know what he's talking about. God doesn't understand how to annihilate a whole civilization, okay? Yeah, so, but Trump thinks he's bigger than God and better than the Pope. And so there is no, planet that can contain Trump's ego.
This whole saga, for me at least, has clarified who the genuinely devout Christians and Catholics are versus those who weaponize their religion for their own means, right? Because for decades in this country, I feel like the Christian voices who preach about things that are actually wonderful, right? Loving your neighbor, treating people with kindness, forgiveness. Like those are the kinds of things that I personally learned about when I was going to Sunday school as a kid. But then I grew up as an adult and the evangelical message kind of dominated everything. The religious extremism kind of dominated the narrative and painted a specific picture of religious people in this country. And I think it drowned out the voices that we're starting to hear more and more from. And I'm glad we're hearing more and more from them, not just from the Pope, by the way, right? All sorts of Christians and Catholics who see what's going on in the Middle East and they are vociferous in their opposition to the cruelty, the brutality, the mass slaughter, the inhumanity. And I love that. I love to see that. Trump doesn't, obviously, but I personally love to see it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.